Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Thrive in 5 podcast. I am 2 episodes in. I'm really proud of myself. Normally, 2 episodes in, I start to flag, but I'm really proud of myself for getting this done. Welcome to episode 2. This podcast was created by a professional woman, which is me, for professional women like you who want life to be about more than just their email signature and who want to lose weight and actually enjoy the life that they're working hard for. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about the whole January diet mindset and how those January diets are normally set up to fail. And I talked in that episode a little bit about how I stood in front of the mirror on multiple New Year's days and vowed that this year would be the time that I changed. In reality, it wasn't just New Year's Day, though. And what I want to talk about today is some of those moments that were my kind of realization that I needed to do something differently, and talk about what didn't work and talk about what actually did work. Because as I say, it wasn't just New Year's Day. In reality, I had multiple moments every single day where I thought, I've got to do something different. I've got to change. This can't go on forever. It was every time I got dressed and my clothes felt a little bit tighter. Every time I sat down in my pencil skirt and I felt the seams literally pulling against my leg. Every time I got on a train and someone was sat next to me and I could feel how big I felt in the seat and how squashed in I felt. Every time I glanced in the mirror and realized how swollen my belly looked. Every time someone snapped a picture of me that I wasn't expecting. Every time I went clothes shopping and I had to scroll to the back of the rail to try and find a size and then it didn't fit me even then. It was so many little moments where I went, this isn't okay. This isn't what I want. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I need to lose weight. I wanted a quick fix so badly. I wanted just to snap my fingers and be thin. I remember Googling weight loss surgery, thinking, well, maybe if I get liposuction, that will fix it. When in reality, what I needed to do was change certain habits and behaviors I had and find a way to lose weight that was sustainable and that worked for me. It wasn't going to be a quick fix. It wasn't going to be any of the ludicrous, stupid diets that I tried of cutting out carbs or juice cleanses or Barry's boot camp 4 times a week, which was horrendous. It wasn't going to be Atkins or keto or the special K diet or apple cider vinegar, all the stuff that I grew up hearing about. I tried every single diet there was. Literally, I tried so many different ways to lose weight and none of it worked because all of them were promising a quick fix. And over time, through doing lots of different things, through working with certain coaches, through trying different PTs and going it on my own and all of that, I started to notice and I started to realize that it wasn't about doing more. It wasn't about pushing harder, taking my calories super low, doing loads of steps. That was what coaches and PTs were asking me to do. And it just wasn't achievable for someone with my lifestyle. I was working a busy corporate job. I was working as chief of staff. I was, commuting long hours. I was spending 12 hours in the office. I was commuting an hour each way. That was never going to work. I needed to think about doing things differently. I was using a system and an approach that worked for somebody who had no responsibilities, but for someone with a life like mine, it just wasn't going to work. I needed to have a different approach, a different way of doing things. And that's what I want to share with you today, how I stopped that starting over and that kind of cycle and actually finally made some progress. So I'm going to rewind all the way back. I'd insert a sound effect, but I don't know how to do that, to one particular moment. I said I had these moments all the time, but there was one particular moment where I thought, I've got to do something different. I had so many moments where I started a diet, but this was one moment particularly where I went, no, I've got to do this diet differently. I was standing in Waterloo Station. It was about 7:30 in the evening. I'd had a really long, hard day. That feeling where my eyes were just struggling to stay open. I was so tired. People were rushing around me in Waterloo Station. I was like, I'm going to pop to WH Smith. And I popped in and I grabbed myself what I would call I had a bad day starter kit. I got myself a family bag of Maltesers. Yeah, worth it. A bag of Sensations crisps, the sweet chili ones, and a Diet Coke. Because I thought, if it's Diet Coke, it's healthy. I was stressed. I was tired. I was craving comfort. I was craving something to just help me switch off from work. And as I stood at the self-checkout in WH Smith, something clicked in me. I had this little moment. It was almost like I was outside of my body where I was like, how many times have I done this? How many times have I got myself in this position? Just a few days before that moment, I said I was starting a diet. And suddenly here I was buying about 800 calories worth of snacks to eat on the train home and then hide from my partner so he didn't realize. How many times have I done this? Because it wasn't just about those snacks. It was everything. Like this feeling of guilt I had every time I did this, the frustration that I'd let myself down again, the feeling that I just couldn't stick to it. I'd started that new plan on Monday. I'd promised myself I'd be perfect. And a few days later, I was already off track. I was already binging those Maltesers on the train home and feeling terrible about it. And I felt like I was constantly failing. And in that moment, I thought, no, I've got to do something different. I've got to do something different. And that was when I signed up with my first coach. It wasn't great, if I'm honest. That's a story for another day. But I thought my first coach, it wasn't great. I've then worked with other coaches since, some of whom were better, some of whom were less good. I've done different things. And what I realized through that experience of working with lots of different coaches and PTs and trying things on my own and all of that is that it wasn't me that was the problem. It wasn't my willpower or my motivation or any of that. It was the plans I was trying to follow. Because those plans, as I've said, they weren't designed for someone like me or for someone like you. Because let's face it, as professional women, our lives are busy and complicated and anything but predictable. We've got jobs that we can't control, meetings that fly in at a moment's notice, inboxes that we just can't seem to get down. We've got family and friends and life and houses and all of that stuff. And sometimes just getting through the day feels like an achievement. But a lot of health and fitness professionals, a lot of diets out there expect us to meal prep for hours, to work out 5 times a week, to hit 10,000 steps a day, to never eat foods that feel good, or to have like one glass of wine a week. And that's just not always achievable. Is it any wonder we feel like we're failing all the time? What I learned through the process of working with those coaches is that it's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things and doing them in a way that works for you and for your life. And for me, that meant letting go of the idea that I needed to overhaul my entire life overnight. And instead, I started to focus on making really small, sustainable changes, things that fitted into my day without me feeling like I was sacrificing everything else. So rather than cutting out everything, I looked for ways to add in more health and fitness stuff. So I would think about, having a proper breakfast alongside the coffee that I was always having for breakfast. I would look at ways to maybe get some more steps in, not by going on a long walk, but just by getting off the train a stop earlier or by parking my car at the other end of the car park. I also looked at things like being more flexible. One of the things I really struggled with was I was such a perfectionist that I was never flexible with myself. So I stopped expecting myself to get it right all the time. I stopped focusing on like the one cross on my habit tracker, if you like, and instead focus on the ticks and what I could do next time. When I had a setback, rather than dwelling on it, I started going, right, move forward, move forward. And that was my constant mantra, was just keep moving forward. And the one thing I did that made a huge difference, I think, was I didn't actually give up the stuff I enjoyed. I didn't give up wine. I didn't give up takeaways. I didn't give up trips to M&S after work. I didn't give up any of the things that I thought were the reason I was failing. Instead, I looked at ways to make those part of my diet so I didn't have to feel guilty for them. And it wasn't a quick fix, as I say, it wasn't a quick fix, but it was about creating something that I could actually stick to and that was sustainable. And that's when I started to see real progress. So here's my question for you. What's been your Waterloo Station moment? What's the cycle that you keep repeating? Take a minute today to reflect on what's worked for you in the past and what hasn't as well. And have a think about what one small change you could make to move a little bit closer to your goals. If this has resonated with you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I'll be diving into how you can stop that all or nothing trap and start making real sustainable progress. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you tomorrow.